Curious George, Up and Away. This is an adaptation by Marcia Goldberg Sachs and Priya Giri Desai. It was a beautiful day in the country. Mrs. Rankins was excited to show her hot air balloon to George, Bill and the man with the yellow hat. But as George ate his blueberries, he looked around and wondered, where was the balloon? Mrs. Rankins turned on a big fan. George could feel the air blow in his face. The large cloth around the ground began to billow. "The fan is inflating the balloon," the man with the yellow hat explained. George saw the balloon taking shape. Next, Mrs. Rankins turned on a flame, and as the hot air filled the balloon, it began to float up. Bill told George, "Hot air rises, so when the flame is lit, the balloon lifts off the ground." In all his life, George had never seen a balloon so big. Bill invited George to take a ride in the balloon. "Let's do some bird watching. We won't go too far since we are tied to the ground with this rope." George climbed aboard, but his foot released the rope. The balloon sailed up and away. The man and Mrs. Rankins were so worried. How would they get Bill and George down? They jumped into Mrs. Rankin's truck and sped after the balloon. Maybe the man could grab the rope and save George and Bill. But the man couldn't reach the rope. From up above, George could see his house. They were travelling so fast and far. George had to do something. He saw a wheel and thought he could steer the balloon back to the Rankins' farm. He'd always wanted to drive. As he turned the wheel, the flame got bigger and the balloon rose. "George," said Bill, "you're filling the balloon with more hot air." Now the balloon floated over a lake. On the other side of the lake, a policeman offered to help the man catch the balloon. They rowed as fast as they could so the man could reach the rope. The man grabbed the rope with both hands, but instead of stopping the balloon, now he was flying too. "Don't worry, George," he called. "I'm coming to get you." George was happy to see his friend, but Bill was worried. What would happen now? The man couldn't hold on to the rope. He landed on a pile of hay. A friendly horse gave him an idea. Up above, Bill was getting really worried. "George," he said, "the wind is blowing us out to sea." But George was having a great time sharing his blueberries with the birds. George noticed that one of the birds was trapped inside the balloon. George pulled the lever that opened the top vent so the bird could get out. As the hot air escaped through the vent, the balloon sailed down towards the beach. The balloon was now low enough for the man, with the help of the friendly horse, to lasso it and tie it to the ground once again. George was relieved to be back on the ground with his friends. Next time, he thought, he didn't need a hot air balloon to go bird watching. He just needed blueberries. Thank you for listening, and hopefully you'll subscribe to my channel.